Sky News in Leicester.
Joining me live now is my political panel, Liberal MP Tim Wilson and Labor MP Graham Perrett. Tim, thank you for joining me. Firstly, what's your reaction to the employment figures released yesterday? 7.4%, but realistically it's much higher than that.
Well, I think like everybody, the numbers are sobering. The COVID crisis has led to this situation. The measures that have been implemented across the country have led to this situation. But we also know that they were, frankly, better than expected. So I think the numbers are sobering. They're mindful of the big task that state governments and the Commonwealth have ahead of it to make sure that we do what we can to reform the economy and to provide the pathways and create the opportunities for people to get back into jobs. That's the focus of the Commonwealth. That's my focus. And I think it's going to be a critical focus for the nation in the coming weeks and months ahead.
Graham, what are your thoughts on the unemployment figures and on the government's JobTrainer scheme?
Yeah, look, the million people out of work, as Tim said, is a particular concern. It changes households, can change generations, and we know that it's going to be a long lag before these people are back in the workplaces, and people are scared at the moment because we're effectively looking down at falling off a bit of a cliff if the government support is cut off. I know we've had some intimations that might not be pushing the nation off a cliff. But look, the training, you ask about education and training, and look, we do welcome the government finally turning to this area. It's been something that Tanya Plibersek and I and Jed Carney have been talking about for a long time, obviously cutting $3 billion out of vocational education training, 140,000 fewer apprentices and traineeships. There was a screaming need for investment in this area to make up for the cuts that had occurred under the Coalition's watch. I think it might be a little bit too little too late for too many young people. We see that that they've already suffering, the 16% youth unemployment, the investment in their futures. It's a very, very troubling time for young people in Australia at the moment, and I think the government needs to step up a little bit more than they already have.
Okay, and Tim, how will the Prime Minister's new Hollywood to the Gold Coast plan help the economy?
Well, firstly, can I just respond to what Graham said? I mean, the spirit in which we're operating at the moment is, of course, that we're seeking to work together nationally to improve the welfare of Australians. The suggestion the government has not taken training seriously is, frankly, farcical, dishonest. Right from the start, in fact, the first package that was provided on the 12th of March included provisions around making sure we assisted and supported people in the area of skills, and particularly those people who are doing apprenticeships. This is a compounding effort consistent with the government's plan about not just supporting people during this crisis so that as many people don't fall through the cracks as possible, but continuing that support as part of a pathway for recovery. And so when it comes to your question about pathways for the film industry, one of the things we know is outside of Victoria, of course, there's a lot of the country that has very low or no infections related to COVID-19. And that's an opportunity to make us a competitive destination. So sectors like the film and television industry, which normally operates out of places like California, can temporarily relocate and build businesses and opportunities to film in locations in Australia. That obviously will give Australians jobs. It will allow the sector to continue. And as we know throughout this crisis, one of the first sectors that people have turned to is the arts and film sector, often when they're in periods of lockdown, to get assistance and support. So the demand is not dissipated. The government has seen the opportunity, and where there are low infections, like in Queensland, it provides the opportunity to create jobs for Australians and invest in new industry.
Graham, what do you think about the new Hollywood plan?
Well, look, I'm all for increased employment, and Queensland's got a long history of making great films. I think Tim's being a little bit misleading there. I mean, the media, entertainment and arts section was ignored by Scott Morrison.
That's just false. There was a substantial
They
package that was offered
weren't
as part
able
of the
to
assistance
access
for
so many
COVID-19.
of the government support programs.
And there was absolutely included in part of the
They came
JobKeeper
too little
package.
too late in terms of media and entertainment section, Tim, as you know. Now, it's good. I do recognise the support for the Hollywood,
the public. You did it on trade
2 weeks
skills.
ago,
You've now
Tim,
done arts and
2 weeks ago when the money was
this is
announced
exactly
for the
the sort of thing
Australian film
Australia
industry,
doesn't need
you only put
right now.
50 million out for Australian films. So why would you treat
the country and getting Australians back to
the film industries differently? I think we should be investing more in Australian stories. That would be my suggestion, rather than just turning to Hollywood for a bit of a press conference. But I think that is how the Prime Minister operates: big, flashy press conference, and then under-delivers for the next few months after that, unfortunately. But look forward to more jobs in Queensland, where most of the virus cases yesterday in Australia were in Victoria. Queensland, we had none. We've managed to keep in control of things. We've listened to our Chief Medical Officer, Jeanette Young. She's doing a great job, and I think we should hopefully reap the economic benefits of that. Hollywood, AFL, more things coming to Queensland is good as far as I'm concerned.
Moving on to another issue, Tim, early superannuation withdrawals have now hit $30 billion. Are you concerned Australians are draining their accounts?
Well, I think there's a lot of data that's a number of people that are included in that data. There are a lot of people, for instance, who are here on temporary work arrangements who have superannuation contributions and have drawn down. And frankly, it's not a bad decision for them to have done so. The most important thing is people are getting the support and assistance where they're needed. And I know that some people, particularly the political front of superannuation funds, the Labor Party, doesn't like it when people are drawing down from their superannuation accounts because they're facing an immediate crisis now. But the idea that it is sensible that people, forego their house or forego their stability for their family when they need assistance with cash they have available now is absurd. This is a prudent measure to make sure that people can support themselves and their families in a difficult time. And of course, we'll all face choices as we continue through this crisis. The most important thing to stop people draining on their the available reserves ultimately comes down to making sure we defeat this virus.
Graham, what are your thoughts?
Well, it's Tim. I would have thought Tim, as the chair of the Economics Committee, would know that the primary purpose of superannuation is to care for people in retirement. Whilst there's always been the capacity for people in dire straits to access those funds, the primary purpose is retirement. So for $30 billion to be taken out now and for them to miss out on compound interests and the like and the benefits that come from that, I worry about the future. We're basically getting young people today are going to be paying for these decisions of today. And when we hear that there's been theft, there's been fraud, there's been people misusing the funds for, plastic surgery and things like that, I think the government has really stuffed up its supervision of this process. We've seen that they totally miscalculated by like 1 million or so the number of people who'd be accessing this scheme, and the money, the way that graph is heading in terms of the funds coming out, I know it does end soon, is particularly troubling and is sending a message to future generations that you'll be paying for the government's decisions and mishandling of this today, and that's unfortunate.
Tim, the Victorian government has launched an investigation into allegations of anti-Semitism at a school in your electorate. How concerned are you by these reports?
Deeply concerned. The allegations made against students and staff at Brighton Secondary College are deeply disturbing. Goldstein is privileged to have the third largest Jewish community in Australia, and to hear these allegations in its heart is really horrific, frankly. A number of state MPs, including David Southwick and James Newbury, have stood up and spoken out against it. I would hope that others do so as well. We are all disturbed by this. I've written to the State Minister, James Merlino, and said we need an expeditious inquiry, an investigation into these allegations because they should not go unremarked or unattended. In fact, one of the most disturbing allegations has been that complaints were made to the school about allegations of anti-Semitism, anti-Semitic harassment and anti-Semitic bullying, and they were largely ignored.
We're just out of time. Tim Wilson, Graham Perrett, thank you both so much for your time.
Gabriella, could I just say 100% agree with Tim on this. He's always been very strong in this area and I commend him for it.
Absolutely. Thank you both.